So have you ever been on your way to your friend's house to shoot that comic book show that you do, but you almost don't get there because he forgets to ring you and tell you that the trains are off? Well, that happened to me this week, and I almost couldn't be here with you to try and find out who the greatest superhero of all time is.
But he is here, through no fault of my own, and we will try and figure out who the greatest superhero is of all time.
Back looking for the greatest superhero of all time. We're going to get right into it. We got Black Widow versus Nightcrawler. You're going to talk about Black Widow. I'm going to talk about Nightcrawler. Oh, by the way, Nightcrawler, first person through on your vote, so well done for that.
Well,
my pick.
I may disagree.
But Black Widow, tell us about Black Widow.
Yes, Black Widow, created in the 1970s, the Russian spy in the Marvel Universe, back when that was a big thing. Eventually came to her senses, in accordance to the 70s, and became one of the good guys, defected to America, joined up with the Avengers, got Hawkeye out of a life of crime. And then, so she joined up with the Avengers, and then shortly after that, she left them. She was able to be found in the pages of Amazing Adventures, where she took on social crimes and crimes of the time. So she helped out destroy the Puerto Rican government, which was oppressing its nation, and helped the hippie movement, and was really a patriot against the... She was kind of there with the anti-establishment to take down the corruption in the establishment, and that kind of kept going into the 80s. She's also had many relationships with a lot of the male characters in the Marvel Universe, such as Hawkeye and Daredevil, and more recently Bucky. Although that shouldn't be a negative character trait, that's positive. She's been kind of an intricate part of the Avengers team, and they're kind of the crossover between the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's kind of where she's at now. She's not with the activism, she's with S.H.I.E.L.D., back to the secret agent spy stuff.
Super spy.
Super spy. She is the super spy of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, so Nightcrawler is a great character, fun character, Kurt Wagner, and he, like a lot of other X-Men, kind of came into it, cool, he's got a power, what power can we give him? We'll give him teleportation. And then his backstory filled in much later on. Orphan, son of Mystique, and I can never pronounce his name. I think it's Azazel, might be his...
Azrael?
I think so. But product of them two. And so always...
Makes sense.
So that's been kind of influencing his story from there on. He's always been this kind of... He seems to have maintained youth. Like, Wolverine always referring to him affectionately as the elf or elf, and that's always like kind of a nice... He's one of these people like Bobby Drake who seems to have this infinite youth. And I think what really defines Nightcrawler, for me at least, is just how cool he is. Like, just how cool and stylish he is. I like that he has a tail. Not
a lot of characters do.
No.
It's him and Squirrel Girl.
Well, I was talking about Iceman the other week and how...
he has a tail?
No. Can do, I suppose. But how he could transform into a human, and it's fine, but Kurt has this thing where he's always like this, and that informs his story as well. I think he's a great character. He's super cool. He's had the same history as all... He's dead now, of course. That's important.
He is, yes.
But brought back in a brilliant way from the Age of Apocalypse, and still maintains his badassery and coolness and really epic power.
I mean, if we're talking badassery and cool, then Black Widow is definitely a person to talk to, because she embodies that. Not only that, but she is one of the rare members of the Avengers who doesn't actually have a superpower. Like, for her to be able to continue in the Marvel Universe from the 60s onwards without any form of superpower is really a testament to her character, because I mean, there's very, very few Marvel characters other than herself and Hawkeye who don't have superpowers, and I think that's really something to be appreciated when it comes to character development, which is something that she's definitely gone through, and she's one of these constantly evolving characters, and she's also able to work great in a team book, and she's been in so many different teams, but then she's fantastic on her own. So I personally, I think it's Black Widow's to go for.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I really do have an attachment to Kurt. I think he's cool, and I'm really whenever he's been written, I've always really enjoyed him, and I'm just fond of him in that kind of way that you're fond of your favorite characters, kind of irrationally. But I think you're right. Black Widow is extremely interesting. She has all these different original traits, and I think on that basis, representing the things that she represents, I don't think Nightcrawler can compete with. So I'm happy for Black Widow to go through.
Okay, so the next pairing we have here is Power Man, aka Luke Cage, versus X-Men's Rogue. I will go first again with Power Man. Much like Iron Fist, being a product of the martial arts craze of the 70s and their answer to Bruce Lee, Power Man, Luke Cage, very much their answer to Shaft. He was the original blaxploitation comic book character alongside Black Panther, one of the first African-American comic book characters, and his character very similar to Black Widow's in their approach into what they tackle as a superhero. He goes about social injustice as well, but instead of it on a more global scale like Black Widow, he does it in a kind of in the ghettos and on the streets level.
Of course he does.
Because it's blaxploitation. He's one of these characters alongside Iron Fist and Daredevil and Spider-Man that patrol the likes of Hell's Kitchen. But unlike the likes of Iron Fist and Daredevil, who they're the kind of, and Spider-Man as well, they're very acrobatic and they do all these fancy moves and stuff like that. His powers are, his skin is near impermeable and he's got super strength. So he just kind of beats the crap out of people.
He'll punch you the fuck down.
And he's gone from Power Man in the 70s with this blaxploitation to now, he's not even called Power Man anymore. He's just Luke Cage, and he doesn't wear a costume. It's a wife-beater vest, pair of jeans, and he just tackles the problem. No superhero gimmick behind it.
What have I seen him in recently? He was in something recently?
He was in AVX, I think.
Something even more recent than that. Anyway, so I'm talking about Rogue. It's hard to think of many X-Men characters that are more iconic than Rogue, I think. And I think part of that is because of the 90s TV series, which kind of does inform a lot of our X-Men. And that was such a strongly portrayed character.
Yeah. The Southern Belle character.
Precisely that. And also, when we think of Rogue, it's impossible to think of Rogue without thinking of A, her power, and B, how that power really, really has had a strong effect on her personal life. You think of just her relationship to Gambit and how for the longest time, because she wasn't able to control her powers, because she'd suck literally the life force out of someone and their memories and their power if they had them. She couldn't touch the person she loved, and we had this like pushing daisies thing for the longest time. And because of that, she's had a real chance to grow as a character. Eventually, she learned to control her powers, and she learned that it wasn't just a limitation, but in fact, she just never evolved beyond what she had. And so then what we have is a character that really, I think, has depth just on that basis, that she's learned to control, and so she really can value those things. She can value touch, she can value love. And the iconic scene as well where she kisses Gambit for the first time, which you can Google, which is...
I own it.
You own it?
Mm-hmm. Got that issue, Jim Lee, Chris Claremont.
There you go. So she's really powerful. Only now are we really tapping into what she can do and how she can do it. Like issue of Uncanny Avengers recently where she uses water as a contact point so she can absorb someone's powers and escape. Very cool, very defined, very iconic. All of which Luke Cage isn't, I think.
I think One of the things I definitely like about Luke Cage that you can't really say for the X-Men characters is that he hit a point where he thought to himself, you know, apart from his team-ups with Iron Fist, he thought to himself, all this Avengers stuff and all those teams are a waste of time. They're too political, they're too self-righteous, and he just thought, you know, action is the way forward. Stop with all of this paperwork and the planning and all this. Just dive straight into the action. There does have to be said something for a character of that integrity.
Isn't that just because no team would have him?
No, he's been on so many teams.
Yeah, but now we don't need you. Then I think we'll just leave you.
Why don't we need him?
Because in essence, you're fairly boring, aren't you? Like, you're just strong. You have steel skin. Of course, you fight in the ghetto. Of course, you wear clothes like that. So I mean, I just think Luke Cage.
It was because he lost the mullet, isn't it?
The mullet is what got him through last time. And if anyone's had a good mullet in her time, it's fucking Rogue. She's
is it a mullet or is it a perm?
It's a pullet.
No, I'm
both big bush of a head.
Yeah,
lovely.
The Chris Claremont Jim Lee drawing for Rogue is fantastic and really iconic character. So no,
she's great.
I'm happy to give it to Rogue because she is one of the more iconic characters, and I think she was really let down in the films. So I think she could do with a win.
The women went out today.
Yes, they do.
They push on, and but they'll be against each other. They'll be pushing. Good.
There'll be a pushing.
Good. So Friday.
What are we talking about
on Friday? On Friday, we're reviewing a film.
Yes, we're reviewing The Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2. Yes, and other than that, if you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at Comic Book Show 1. Delightful on there.
One of the things we don't do on the Twitter is offend women and black people. We don't.
Well, you don't. I go out of my way.
Oh, good. Okay.
We'll see you then.
Bye. I don't know what that was. I get awkward.
I'm not a racist.